7-year-old Adya lost her life to dengue after being kept on a ventilator for 15 days at Gurugram's Fortis hospital. But even as Adya's parents were still coming to terms with their daughter's death, they were in for a bigger shock. Fortis handed them a bill amounting to over 16 lakh rupees.
In an instance that highlights the shocking case of corruption in many healthcare facilities in India, this is the bill that I have of the Fortis Escorts Hospital in Gurugram, which charged 15,59,322 for the treatment of a 7-year-old child who died of dengue in that hospital.
Adya's distraught parents have slammed the hospital over the exorbitant bill, claiming that they have been overcharged. The bill furnished to the distraught parents included charges for 1,558 gloves. This according to the itemized bill presented to the parents by the hospital.
So the attitude of the hospital on the last day was completely inhuman and insensitive to things. Like the moment I said, based on their recommendation, when I said that I will take my baby back, everything was like, you manage everything. So you get the ambulance, you get everything done. You're signing Lama, so we'll not be giving you an ambulance, we'll not giving you a death certificate. It took me 8 hours to get the billing done.
Meanwhile, Fortis Hospital has issued a statement on the incident, which says that the family was informed on a daily basis about the critical condition of the child and were made aware of the poor prognosis in such situations. The hospital statement also clearly says that parents were kept informed about the rising expenses. But the grieving parents allege loot by the hospital. They are demanding regulations in private hospitals and transparency so that other patients don't meet a similar fate. The Union Health Minister has also taken note of their plight and assured action.
बहुत ही दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण घटना है और इस घटना को सरकार ने बहुत संज्ञान लिया है। मैंने हॉस्पिटल अथॉरिटीज़ को इससे की उनकी पूछताछ की है और मैंने उनको कहा है कि आप एक डिटेल्ड रिपोर्ट भारत सरकार स्वास्थ्य मंत्रालय को भेजें।
Baby Adya's case has shocked the entire nation, but even as her parents fight for justice, Mira now asks, is it time to regulate costs at private hospitals? Mira now report.
Well, the question that we are asking this evening in reaction to this particular case is that, is it time for hospital administration to be regulated? Various hospitals put various charges on bills for patients. In some cases, we understand, and we talked about this with regard to Bangalore and Karnataka not long ago, where hospitals refuse to release the body of a deceased family member until the bills are completely paid. Are things like that fair? In this particular case, the parents of this child who has been lost tell us that they were not given enough information, they were not briefed, and they were in complete shock that after they lost their child, they were presented with a bill of over 15 lakh rupees, which they then had to deal with. Should the government now step in and regulate how these things are billed? Our phone lines are open, but I want to first put out for you the Fortis Hospital response. They've sent us a page-long response that we will also upload onto our website so you can access as well. But what it says is that the patient was admitted with an initial diagnosis of severe dengue. At the time of admission, the child's condition was serious and it was deteriorating. At each step, the patient's family was briefed about the critical condition. The MRI of the brain was done after explaining possible complications of the transfer of the child. 50 pairs of disposable gloves or 40 to 50 disposable syringes per day is not unusual. 750 gloves, 600 syringes were used during the 15-day period of stay in ICU is justifiable and acceptable, and the LAMA patients are not offered hospital ambulances. Family was being kept appraised of the bill daily. Each item on the bill has been used for medical treatment of Adya alone and nobody else, and there has been no negligence or overcharging. All standard medical protocol was followed. Now, I just want to remind you of this case. This is a child of 7 who was admitted with dengue. She stayed in the hospital for a duration of 15 days. She was on the ventilator for 14 out of those 15 days. The total bill came up to 15 lakh rupees 79,000. And my team has been looking at the bill specifically, and they tell us that although the hospital's response says 750 gloves were used, according to the bill, 1,558 gloves were used. That's an average of 104 gloves a day. The question we're asking is right now, should these hospitals be regulated? Joining me on the show, Narendra Taneja of the BJP. And I want to remind our viewers that the minister in charge has said he has taken cognizance of the matter. He said he will ask for an inquiry and he will look into this particular bill. Dr. Devi Shetty, cardiac surgeon and chairperson and founder of Narayan Hridyalaya or Narayan Health. I'm so happy to have him on the show. He's a very, very strong voice. Dr. Sarmeer Dalwai is the president of the development chapter and the president of the Mumbai branch of the Indian Academy of Pediatricians. Dr. Sanjeev Bagai is a Padma Shri awardee, senior consultant pediatrician at Nephron Clinics. Dr. Abhay Shukla is the national convener of the Jan Swasth Abhiyan. He's also a member of the Alliance of Doctors for Ethical Healthcare. Jayant Singh is the father of 7-year-old Adya, who was the child who was lost in this case, and Ramakant Gaur is a lawyer with the Supreme Court. Very, very eminent panel of doctors here. And I want to start by speaking with Jayant Singh, Adya's father. Jayant Singh, tell us what you thought the problem was in Fortis's, in the manner in which Fortis handled this particular case. Why did you feel that they were being unethical?
So the main issue I would like to highlight was the day, on the last day, how I was treated by the hospital. I have been kept on insisting after my daughter didn't recover, after the sedative was stopped, and she didn't recover for 3 days. I have been insisting with the hospital authorities and the doctors to conduct a brain test, maybe an MRI or a CT scan, just to check the condition of the brain. And then on the last day, on 14th, when they could not avoid it, they did the MRI scan, and the doctors themselves, they communicated to me. They called family into the private room and they informed us that let the baby rest in peace. That is what the doctors told me. I am quoting the doctor's words. They also said that she has suffered a lot. Let the baby rest in peace. That is what the doctors told me. And they said that we have done whatever we could do. Her brain is 70-80% damaged, and there is no chance that the brain will recover. So on one side they are suggesting me, at the same time they stopped the dialysis. They stopped, my child was being fed, milk was being fed to her, but they stopped that feeding process immediately. And after an hour or so, the doctor is coming and talking to my wife and saying that if you allow, then we can go with a full body plasma transplant. So the same doctor who has been ethical in telling me that let the baby rest in peace, they are suggesting me to take the baby off ventilator. And after an hour, this doctor is coming back and talking to my wife and telling her that we can do a plasma transplant even after the brain is 70-80% damaged. So these two things, like that was something which that shattered me. My trust in the doctors were lost on the last day. I was trusting the doctor, whatever they're doing. They were telling me that she is not in condition to do a MRI test, so I was trusting them. But this incident is what happened on the last day, and the behavior after that, it got changed drastically. Like there was no support for me. They asked me to sign a LAMA form. The doctor said this is a procedure that we have to follow because the heartbeat is working, so you have to sign a LAMA form. We didn't leave against their advice. They only advised me to take the baby home, let her rest in peace. This is the advice they gave me. And then they asked me to sign a LAMA form, and as per LAMA they mentioned that you are not entitled for an ambulance. We will not give you a death certificate. You have to get your own ambulance. Our doctors will remove the ventilator in the ambulance. Then you take the daughter to another hospital, get her death certificate from that hospital. So this behavior showed me that how commercial they have become. And they took me 8 hours to get the bills done. So that was the inhuman behavior. And you can understand the trauma I was going through that day at that time, and it took them 8 hours. And when I was telling them I'm ready to pay whatever is due, I will pay and let me go home. Then they gave me the last bit that we are giving you some discount. And after 2 hours of long deliberation within Fortis, they gave me a discount of 20,000 rupees, 1% discount, 1.25% discount. on a bill of 16 lakh rupees, and for that they made me wait for another 2 hours.
Well, I want to bring in our panelists one by one.
Yes, to get the bills done, get everything sorted out so that I can take my my baby home. That was my whole objective. I didn't argue anything with them. I just was requesting them to let my baby go home. Even after I paid all the bills, then the nurse said that the clothes are not fitting her. Then I asked them to discharge in the medical gown which the daughter was wearing. So they said, sir, go and pay 900 for this gown also. I went and paid. I didn't make any issue with that. I went down, silently I went down and I paid for it. And then my baby was discharged. But is this behavior human behavior? Can you expect this behavior from a hospital to a father whose daughter is being lost at that time? Is this a human behavior? You can think about the trauma that I went through on that day. And now hospital is telling me that I have sent you a SMS when your daughter was onboarded in the hospital. You must have received a SMS which would have given you my number. You could have talked to me on that day. So should I look at the SMS, or should there be someone who can help me out with all those things in the hospital? And the behavior which was there earlier, that got changed the moment it became like that I can't mint any more money from this person. He is going to take his daughter back from the hospital. The behavior got changed drastically.
Mr. Jain Singh.
So is it not a commercial behavior?
Yes,
so that makes me think whatever the doctors were doing for 15 days, was this correct? What they're doing the right treatment? Why should I not question them on this front?
Right. No,
when I was requesting them to
Jain
do
Singh,
MRI, why did they refuse to do that?
Yes, I offer you our condolences. I know that this is a very difficult time, but the question that you're asking is really, really important, and it's relevant for everyone in this country, because at some point or the other, we're going to be in hospitals seeking medical treatment. Who is going to regulate these hospitals? Dr. Devi Shetty, founder of Narayan Hridayalaya, Narayan Health. Dr. Devi Shetty, thank you for joining us. You've heard what Jain Singh has to say. The hospital, in response, says the patient's family was explained again about the critical condition of the child, after which they took the decision to take the child at leave against medical advice. That is the Lama form that he's talking about. A bill of 15 lakh rupees, 59,000 for 15 days stay in an ICU. Dr. Devi Shetty, do you think that adds up? Do you believe there is reason here to perhaps investigate?
It's very, very unfortunate whatever has happened to the baby, the child. It shouldn't have happened. But I can't pass any judgment because I have absolutely no information about the child's medical condition and other details. But I can only say that, on behalf of the medical community, whatever has happened, we are all very, very sorry. And I hope it doesn't happen again. That's all I can hope and pray to God. Yeah.
But Dr. Shetty, and for the child's medical condition, according to the hospital, and this is what the hospital has given us, it says at the time of admission, the child initial diagnosis was severe dengue. The child's condition was serious and deteriorating. She was initially treated at Rockland Hospital. Her investigations revealed NS1 antigen positive for dengue. In view of her worsening respiratory status, the child was intubated on the 2nd of November. She was admitted on the 31st on the 2nd of September, I beg your pardon. She was admitted on the 31st of August, and then they started mechanical ventilatory support. But the questions that the parent is asking right now, what would you believe were the ethical ways in which the hospital should have treated the parent? Because the parent obviously feels at this point he was not treated ethically.
See, I can't comment on the medical part because, as I said, I have no idea. If the baby is on a ventilator, obviously the baby was pretty unwell. It is expensive to keep the baby in ICU every day, but I'm not sure, how much it costs. Generally, it doesn't cost that much of money unless something exceptional has been done or very, very expensive antibiotics and other life-saving measures have been done. Otherwise, it is expensive. I'm not sure about the breakup of what exactly has been done. It is definitely very expensive. I can tell you that it will. If the baby is on ventilator, if they put the baby on ECMO and other artificial support system, then it will cost very, very high. Yeah.
Let me just offer the breakup.
It's very hard for me to give the opinion
yes,
about
I understand.
other hospitals.
I understand. I'm also going to go to Dr. Sanjeev Bagai. This is the breakup as we have it. Admission charge 1,200, blood bank 61,000, diagnostic 29,000, doctor's charges altogether 53,900, drugs 3,96,000, equipment charge 71,000, investigation 2.17 lakh, medical surgical procedures 2.85 lakh, medical consumable 2.73 lakh, miscellaneous 15,000, room rent 1,74,000 rupees, a total of 15,59,322. Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, does this seem unusual or unusually high to you?
Good evening. My first statement as my prayers and condolence for the family. It's always a very poignant moment to lose any child. But first off, I would like to say that as a doctor, as a clinician, any doctor in any part of the world, including India, would do their level best for the patient and try to save the patient. I would keep my discussion limited to the point of clinical care. Dengue per se, as when especially a smaller child goes into dengue shock syndrome, the mortality is extremely high, especially if you have multi-organ involvement. Generally in these kind of children, you have the liver involved, children go into kidney failure, neurologically they get depressed, they go into respiratory failure, they go into cardiac compromise, they have decreased urine output, they have a lot of fluctuation in their body salts and electrolytes and the blood pressure. So they obviously require a very high level of intensive care treatment. With regards what level of treatment, what type of treatment, the specifications of the medications or the life support systems, it's difficult to make a judgment call primarily because it's something which someone else has treated. But as a person who's treated these in the past, I would say that these children have a difficult battle. You need not one but a team of doctors to save these kind of children. Not all the time that we are successful, but in a vast majority of time we manage to save the children, but not in all cases. But the smaller details of what was given at what time, it would be inappropriate on my part to make a call on that because I don't have the requisite information and I was not present physically, like so most of the doctors on panel here who were treating this child. But it's extremely unfortunate and my condolences. But I must add one point. Children, especially in the intensive care, who have dengue shock syndrome or indeed hemorrhagic syndrome, have a vast cascading effect of complications. This would not be an appropriate forum to describe the complications, but minute to minute values change. Very often they require repeated investigations. There's a complete team of doctors which actually require, including intensivists, nephrologists, pulmonologists, and so on. There are a lot of procedures done on these children. And I'm sure as a clinician, everything possible would have been done for any child, like so in this child. But like I said in the beginning, and I'm saying this at the end of this present statement, is my condolences and prayers because it's extremely sad to lose any child.
Right, Dr. Abhay Shukla. Dr. Abhay Shukla, do you believe that the bill of 15 lakh rupees is unusual or unusually high?
Yeah, I'd like to make a few points here, which are more of systemic nature. Adya's case and Adya's ordeal and the family's ordeal, which took place in Fortis Hospital, is unfortunately not an isolated incident. There are thousands of such incidents taking place across the country, and we need to look at this as a larger systemic problem. And I would like to emphasize that today, even as a doctor, I would like to say that a large proportion of the medical community seems to be in a state of ethical paralysis. And we are not being able to take stands as doctors on serious ethical violations. Why was the family denied an ambulance to transport the patient? Why was a recommendation given to undergo full body plasma transplant in a case where there was 70% brain damage? These are grossly unethical, and in fact, denial of ambulance is a denial of patients' rights. As doctors, where are our ethics? What are we doing? This is one level of question. And the second level is that why are private hospitals not being regulated in this country for quality of care, standards of care, rates of care, and patients' rights? This is an urgent need of the hour. Why is the IMA silent on this? Why are so many senior doctors silent on this? Why are we not taking a stand that private hospitals need to be urgently regulated? Why is the health minister not immediately ensuring that the National Clinical Establishments Act of 2010 and the rules of 2012, which mandate that rates must be regulated in private hospitals, why is it not implemented immediately in various states across the country? Haryana is
Dr. Shukla, Karnataka just attempted to do that, and all the doctors went on strike and people died. So it is not as easy for governments to make that decision, because if doctors go on strike, lives are lost. So when you say regulate private hospitals, how do you mean regulate private hospitals?
No, there needs to be a constructive dialogue. The medical profession needs to be involved, but regulation is a must. And
regulation,
today, in the
let me bring in some voices. Let me bring in some more voices. Narendra Taneja of the BJP.
Escape regulation.
Narendra Taneja of the BJP, what action will the government take in this particular case to do with Atya Singh? And will you be regulating pricing mechanisms of private hospitals?
And why is the BJP not going for implementation of the clinical establishment?
First of all,
yes, Narendra Taneja, please.
Yeah, extremely unfortunate, and my condolences to the family and my prayers for the child. Really, really shocking. I mean, I've heard Dr. Devi Shetty also very carefully. I've also read about the kind of work he's doing in Bangalore, the way he kind of regulates his own hospital and establishment in Bangalore and in that area. But the question is that, you know, a hospital is a hospital, whether it's a private or this thing, you know, and when people go there as patient, they look upon doctor as God, as someone who would save the life. And then in return, if that's what you get, you know, I can understand the emotions, you know. And the minister has asked the government for a report, has asked the Haryana government and the hospital for the report. We should have the report very soon, and then accordingly, you know, the government will be taking the required action. That's important. But in terms of what should be done, as you know, it's a state subject, and Karnataka government did try to do something. And what we need is basically a debate on this issue in various states, and at the same time, doctors, eminent doctors like Dr. Shetty and others, they must come forward and participate in such a debate. We got to do something. I agree with Mr. Akshay. We got to do something. You know, what should that be? I think that there should be debate, first of all, within the community of doctors and hospitals and all that, and then also at public at large, and channels like you can play an important role in that. The idea is that we need to find a way forward. Should the there is no self-regulation. Or if there is one, evidently it's not working. I'm not referring only to Fortis case because I don't know much about it, but I'm talking in general because as a politician, I keep getting such reports from different parts of the country all the time. So definitely we need to do something about it, but what should that be? That I think is important, that there is a proper debate on that.
But I believe there are several reports and representations in front of the government already on what can that be. But Dr. Sameer Dalwai, go ahead. You wanted to respond?
Well, as a pediatrician, again, I would like to offer my condolences to the parents, and as a pediatrician, it's always a personal loss that a doctor feels when he loses a child. I'm glad that the parents do feel that the child was looked after by the doctors very well, and my issue that I'd like to bring out here is a very clear issue. Who is to blame for this? Who is the person who has raised that bill? I'm not going to comment whether it is appropriate or not appropriate, because like the other colleagues said, I was not there to see what was done. But if you go through that bill, the copy was here somewhere.
Yes,
just
the copy is right here. Yes.
Minutes back. If this is the bill, if you go through the bill that you've just shared, if you go to the column which says doctor's charges, out of these lakhs of rupees that we are talking about, a doctor's charges out of 15 lakhs, 59,000, the doctor's charges are 53,900. So out of 15 lakhs, the doctors have charged 53,900. There have been 4 or 5 doctors involved, as my colleague said. This is a multidisciplinary team that is needed. People are to come in, and the doctors have only charged 53,000 the amount. And we are saying doctors have cheated a child. How can we have such an attitude? Why are we blaming the doctors? Do doctors own Fortis Hospital? Is it the doctor who owns the Fortis Hospital or decides the policy whether there should be an ambulance or not? It is the hospital administration and hospitals all across India. I am very pained by the fact that we are painting all doctors by this brush. The doctor, I can tell you, I don't want to name, but the person whose name I read there as the intensivist for this child, I don't know whether he was a primary doctor for this gentleman's child, but I know this doctor. He's been a teacher to all of us. He must have trained and thousands and hundreds of pediatricians all across the country who are saving thousands of lives every day. As a doctor who is looking after a baby on a ventilator, trust me, the person himself is like almost on a ventilator all day. He is stressed, he is tense. He will not do anything to harm the child for the simple reason, beyond the emotional fact, it's also my profession, it's for my reputation. Why will I do to harm the child? So if there's an issue about the charges, about regulating the bills, how many gloves were used, whether they were truly used or not, it's not the doctor's fault.
It's the hospital administration.
It
So you're
could be
saying
the
the question should be targeted at the hospital administration at this point. Athiya's father wants to come in. Jayant Singh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say one thing. How are the hospitals made up? Are they made up of rooms or they are made of doctors? So if the hospital is doing something wrong, are the doctors not responsible in checking that their hospitals in which they are working in? Doctors get off, like they have took, like Karnataka wanted to bring a bill and the doctors, they took the whole state for ransom. Many people died of it. They collate and they take people for ransom. If anything was wrong, they should have discussed before going on a strike.
But that's a fair question.
Was the bill wrong which the Karnataka government was wanting to bring? If they are so ethical in doing whatever they are doing, why are they not wanting to get things regulated? If they are ethical in doing things, then let's do it the right way. Let's say this is the right way and we are doing the right way. We should not have any questions in terms of we did this and this is the right way. We should be knowing what is the right way, and then I can question that did the doctor do the right way or not. My daughter was on ventilator from 1st of September. Till 3rd she was given sedative. After that the sedative was stopped. But my point is, like, on 3rd itself the sedative was stopped and my daughter didn't regain conscious after that. And the doctors were telling me that brain is a concern for them. But I was also insisting to get the brain checked. But they didn't take any action on that. What I feel right now is like you had a burst tire and you were trying to put punctures. As doctors mentioned, in this case, what happens is all the organs fail. So you are maintaining the organs. When you know the whole central nervous system, the brain is gone, and then you are maintaining the organs. What's the point in doing that? And you're saying that there's no option to do a brain test. When the person is on ventilator for 13 days, and when I insisted for 3 days, in the last 3 days when I insisted, then they took a call to do a MRI scan. And then after 13 days, the patient becomes so eligible to be moved out of ventilator and an MRI is conducted, and initially the patient is not there. And the patient is deteriorating every day. That is what the doctor is telling me. But suddenly when I started questioning them, I started arguing with them, then they take a call that they will do an MRI scan. How ethical is that? As a doctor, can you say that if a person is on ventilator or for 14 days, his condition is deteriorating every day, her sedative was stopped on 3rd and she didn't regain conscious after that? On what basis, what happened on 14th that the doctor said that, okay, now we can do a MRI test? Why can't they do a MRI test earlier? That is my question.
Dr. Bagai?
And after finding out that the brain is 70-80% damaged, and then they are telling me that let the baby rest in peace. And then after that 2 hours, 1 hour, 2 hours, they're coming to my wife and telling her that if you say we can do a full body plasma transplant.
All right. Let Dr. Bagai respond to this. So respond to what you're hearing, Dr. Bagai.
I really like one thing about doctors in India. They defend the fraternity like anything.
Yeah.
Dr. Bagai, go ahead.
You talk to any doctor, he will support other doctors.
Yeah.
They are good lawyers for each other.
Yeah, let him respond, please. Let him respond. Dr. Bagai.
Okay. We've, at least in my own clinical practice, we've faced this dilemma many times. It's a clinical decision. So again, I cannot talk on behalf of another doctor when that event has already occurred. But just from out of the box, it's sometimes a difficult clinical decision to shift a hemodynamically unstable child with fluctuating electrolytes and blood pressure from the ICU into the MRI room. There are also issues in which there are certain MRI and CT scan machines which are ventilator compatible versus non-compatible. So it's a clinical call. Plasmapheresis or plasma exchange occasionally works in case the patient is in acute kidney failure or in acute kidney injury or for electrolyte control of the balance. But again, like I said, this is something which the prime intensivists would take a call. What particular test wish to be ordered at what particular timeline in dengue shock syndrome or dengue hemorrhagic syndrome, it's difficult to say. What the capacity of the lung was, what was the cardiac function. There are many things which we need to take into account. I can understand the pain of the father. I completely appreciate his statements with a lot of empathy and compassion. But these are sometimes hard clinical decisions which are taken by clinicians on the floor, bedside, which can fluctuate minute to minute.
Well, I have this question to ask all of the doctors on the panel, and this came also from Dr. Abhay Shukla. One second.
I want to link two things. One point you are saying the brain is 70-80% damaged, and then at the same time you are saying a full plasma transplant. Try to link these two things and then give me your opinion. That is my point. You are responding to partial things. On one hand, you have said that brain is 70-80% damaged, and then you're saying let the baby rest in peace. And then you are, after an hour or so, you are telling my wife that we can do a plasma transplant. Can you connect these two things and say that doctors are ethical in doing this? Abhay, are these two things possible?
I don't know if it's fair or if any of these doctors would be willing to comment on the details of the case, given that they weren't there when these calls were being taken. But Abhay Shukla wants to come in. Abhay Shukla, go ahead.
Yes, I think one point which is being somehow not adequately addressed by the other honorable doctors on this panel, yes, and which needs to be centrally addressed is, I'll ask 2 or 3 questions. Number 1, should private hospitals be regulated for rates or not?
Yes.
If there is excessive charging taking place in certain hospitals, should that be checked or not through regulation? And Mr. Taneja can also answer to this question, because the BJP actually has a responsibility to implement the Clinical Establishment Act with regulation of rates in all at least BJP ruled states across this country. Why is this not happening? And why is the IMA and various doctors associations opposing the implementation of Clinical Establishment Act or KPME in Karnataka, which is an amendment of the Hospital Regulatory Act, which can regulate the rates in private hospitals? Why are doctors opposing this? I, as a doctor, am in favor of rational regulation which takes into account the genuine issues of doctors and also of patients and society, number 1. And number 2, if unethical actions are taking place in
Dr. Shukla, let me take this question then to our entire panel, and I want to start with Dr. Devi Shetty. First question, do you believe that private hospitals should be regulated by government? Should those who are overcharging, perhaps committing fraud in terms of billing, should they be in any way regulated? Should rates be looked into by the government? Devi Shetty. Dr. Devi Shetty.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to inform all of you about Karnataka's KPMA Act. The doctors opposed en masse not because of the price regulation. They opposed it because one of the main clauses of KPMA Act was regulating the doctors in case of any litigation. I'll give a simple example. as a doctor, somebody does the operation, one of the doctors do the operation on a patient, and God forbid the patient dies, the patient's family can complain to a district, there is a district political committee which can investigate the doctor, and doctor is supposed to stand in front of an elected politician, explain to him in detail why the patient died following the operation. Of course, there are some government doctors in the committee, and doctor is not allowed to be represented by a lawyer when he is asked to present himself in the committee. So the whole agitation was, and more than anything else, this politically elected person is given the right to imprison the doctor for 5 years.
Okay.
So this is the reason why Karnataka doctors agitated, and they didn't want the bill to go through.
To be fair, Dr. Shetty, the previous regulation also had the imprisonment term. But I want to focus right now on rates regulation and ethical or unethical behavior by hospital administration. Should doctors be standing up against this sort of billing, or do you believe that government should regulate hospital administration?
See, we have absolutely no problem in government regulating the private hospitals and enforcing standards, but there cannot be two sets of rules. One set of rules to govern the way the private hospitals run, and another set of rules to govern the government hospitals. Patients are the same. It doesn't matter whether he goes to the private hospitals or the government hospital. We wanted uniformity across the country. That's all we are fighting
for. So you
for.
believe in, and I want to bring in Ramakant Gaur. Ramakant Gaur, I think the reason why there's such a lot of outcry about this particular story, and I must tell Jain Singh, there are messages coming in from across the country right now, Jain Singh, in condolence for you and your family and for the loss of your daughter. And people want to ask this question: 15,59,000 rupees for an ICU bed. What is a lower middle class Indian supposed to do? Give up? How is anybody supposed to afford good healthcare in this country? Ramakant Gaur, how do we get justice from unethical hospital administration?
See, as far as justice is concerned, in this particular case, this is denied. And I say that on the basis of pure law. I'm not quoting any sentimental value here. I am hurt, I'm at pains when I hear this, but I'm quoting the pure law in this regard. A legislation was passed which is named as the Clinical Establishment Registration and Regulation Act, and it was passed on 18th August 2010. The government slapped over it, and it was Congress government at that time. They brought out certain rules and regulation on 23rd of May 2012. And those rules provides that for the registration and regulation and the continuation of these clinical establishment, Fortis would certainly fall under that. They must show their charges at the conspicuous places. Please give me liberty to read out some of the rules, because they are important for the masses. They may not be aware of that this is the law of the land. For registration and continuation, every clinical establishment shall fulfill the following conditions, namely, every clinical establishment shall display the rates charged for each type of services provided and facilities available for the benefit of the patients at a conspicuous place in the local as well as in English language.
So your point is, Ramakant Gaur, your point is...
It is not done.
It's not being done. All right. Now, I just want to bring in a voice here. I want to bring in a voice here from Narendra Taneja of the BJP. 1 second. Narendra Taneja, do you believe that there should be a regulation right now on all private hospitals in terms of what they're charging? Because we have two problems in this country. One, government hospitals are not up to the mark, which is why people are forced to go to private hospitals, and they wind up then accessing treatment or not accessing treatment that it's just completely unaffordable. The average Indian cannot afford to pay this kind of money. And there's no regulation, Mr. Taneja. Why not?
Well, the price regulation, as you might have noticed, that we are already doing in terms of stents, and we are regulating the prices of some of the things that are used in hospital. But the bigger question, which Dr. Shukla also raised, which I think was very important, is we got to do something. As I said, health is a state subject. So various states, different states, they have to come out with their own kind of regulatory bodies and initiative and all that. But I think to start with, and the other question is, bigger question is, how do you impose ethics? Here, what we are also discussing, actually, at the very core of this is ethics. How do you impose that? How do you regulate ethics? That's in a profession like this. So therefore, I think the probably one of the things that could be done, and this is not my party or the government idea, my personal thought is that probably the eminent doctors like Dr. Shetty and some others from different parts of the country, they come up with some kind of mechanism that there could be some kind of self-regulation to start with. Because you see, probably they would listen to other doctors, especially eminent doctors like Dr. Devi Shetty and a few others across the country.
Self-regulation is obviously not working.
And there should be debate on the same time.
Correct.
Self-regulation, and Jain Singh wants to come in. Jain Singh, you don't believe self-regulation will work?
Law is there in place. Regulation, rules.
Yeah.
No, Faye, but regulations are there in place. What is not being done is they are not executed properly.
They are not executed properly.
The law is very clear. They have to put the rates and rates in regulation, and these rates are to be in commensuration with the government rates. The law is very clear on that.
All right. Jain Singh, go ahead.
Only thing is,
which is
not being done is that it is not implemented.
I would like,
Jain Singh, please carry on.
So one point with Mr. Taneja raised was like how we bring ethics here. So one thing I want to bring to your notice, institutes like Fortis, they are listed companies. They are working for the benefit of their stakeholders. They are working for the benefit of their investors.
Yes.
Well, they work for the benefit of the stakeholders, for the investors. How they will keep everything on ethics is nowhere in that case. You are doing business. You are doing pure business. You are a listed company. Your share prices fluctuate on the business you do, on your revenue you earn every quarter. Your sales prices fluctuate because of that.
Dr.
Investors earn money because of that.
Go ahead.
I completely agree.
Kind of things are there. How we can talk about ethics for these hospitals?
But I don't want to believe that ethics and good business cannot go hand in hand. Dr. Dalwai.
Yeah, well, I agree with you in the sense that yes, this is a profit-making or a listed company. My point is this: what does the Indian Constitution guarantee us? The Indian Constitution guarantees us the right to life, which is again an issue of health. Right to life with dignity, again an issue of health. It also gives us a right to profession and to practice what we feel is right for us, also gives a right to health. Whose duty is it to implement the constitution and give what the constitution promises to citizens of India? It's obviously the duty of the government. The duty of the government is to give affordable health care to every Indian citizen, because we tax each and every Indian citizen, or at least those of us who are paying tax. It is the duty of the government of India to have ensured that every person can go to a healthcare facility which he chooses, which he thinks is the best, at a rate or a price which is affordable or free if the government does it. What stops the government from doing that? Today, when I went to medical school, I worked at KEM Hospital so many years back. It was rated as one of the best institutions in the city. Today, you go and take a look at any of the government or municipal hospitals. Just a few days back, we were debating about what happened in Gorakhpur. Children are dying by it's bad to say that hundreds of children died there. What regulation worked there? Why were why was that administration not taken to task?
So your point is?
My point is, at the end of the day, don't just blame the doctors, whether it is in the government service or in the private sector. It has been made in a way that small nursing homes have been made to, in a way, shut down. It's no longer feasible for a small nursing homes to work. And previously, when there were small nursing homes, there was a very good connect between the doctor and the patient, and all these things were possible. But we have made rules and things so difficult that small nursing homes are shutting down. So that's a larger view if you look at what's happening in the country over the last few months.
So Narendra Taneja, the doctors say that it is the government's responsibility to give every Indian citizen affordable health care.
Just to complete, by not doing that, you sidestep and then let the doctors who are doing private practice and taking care of 80-90% of the people of this country, you put them in the line of fire. I mean, that's a very smart thing to do.
Is the government abdicating its role here, Narendra Taneja, on healthcare?
No. You see, Absolutely is the government responsibility. I agree with that, but at the same time, as I said, that looking at the constitution and look at the various states, they have to do it because health is a state responsibility. And in some of the states, like in Tamil Nadu, there are fewer, Kerala and others, they are doing better than, let's say, some of the states in northern part of the country. So it's not that, system across the country. No, we can have a debate on that. Listen to me if you want, please. And so it depends from state to state. What is important is that this needs to be we have to give a little bit more, a more focus on that. And at the same time, incentivize, incentivize the medical system in such a way that people, they are able to set up hospitals where the core interest of the patient is taken care of. And at the same time, ethical standards are high. These are some of the things. So we all have to need to work together. The government, doctors and all other stakeholders. That's how, because this profession is very different. This field is very different from any other profession.
This particular case cannot be a trigger to start a conversation between government and doctors. Government and doctors should have already been having a conversation. We should have already arrived at regulations. We should already be in process.
So this sounds very good to talk. I mean, I'm sure it sounds nice platitudes to speak, but it's a practical reality. Why is it in the city of Mumbai 80% of the healthcare is delivered by private professionals, whether they are quacks or whether they are genuinely trained doctors? Why is it that the government service is not chosen? I completely feel sad for the condition of the parent here who's here. Why was the government hospital system not good enough for him to go there? Why has the government left it to a Fortis hospital and this gentleman would feel I'll get better?
And that is the thing that these hospitals are taking advantage of.
Why is the government not doing that?
Because there is a problem in demand and supply, and these private hospitals then can make a complete killing because citizens have no choice. Abhay Shukla. Dr. Abhay Shukla, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to ask Mr. Narendra Taneja a question that Rajasthan is a BJP-ruled state. It has adopted the National Clinical Establishment Act, and it has not been implemented even in the last 5 years. Uttar Pradesh is a BJP-ruled state. Why has it not implemented the Clinical Establishment Act? Jharkhand is a BJP-ruled state. Why has it not implemented the National Clinical Establishments Act? Assam is a BJP-ruled state. Why has it not implemented the National Clinical Establishments Act? Why is the Union Health Minister not prevailing on various states, at least which are BJP-ruled, to immediately implement the Clinical Establishment Act with regulation of rates, with patients' rights, with standard treatment guidelines? Self-regulation has failed in this country. You must be knowing what is the state of the Medical Council of India. Today, just to talk in generic terms about self-regulation is not sufficient. We need a state regulation which is accountable to people and which is accountable to the larger society. Why is the central government not implementing the Clinical Establishment Act with regulation of rates across various states, at least which are ruled by the ruling party? I think you need to answer this question.
Mr. Taneja, respond very quickly. Mr. Taneja, respond very quickly.
Yeah, just very quickly, because I have to move to another channel very quickly. As far as these states are concerned, these are very specific questions, and these need to be addressed to various states, since health is a state subject. As far as the central, this particular incident we are talking about, minister has already asked for the report. We are waiting for the report, and once the report has come, the government will basically see that how do we need to go about the whole thing. What is important today is most important is that whatever possible the government can do, government is going to do that, and at the same time make sure that the best possible facilities are available.
Jain Singh has something to say, and I'm going to give Jain Singh an opportunity to respond here because this is his case. Jain Singh, go ahead.
Yeah. So one point in the panel, we are talking about ethics. Doctors, one person in the panel has mentioned that doctors are at times not responsible for things. It's the hospital administration which takes those decisions, and because of that thing has happened. I've never heard a case where a doctor has reported such malpractices in their hospital. If they're so ethical and they know these kind of unethical things are happening, hospitals have targets for doctors. That is world known to everyone in India. Has any doctor confronted their hospitals that these are targets given to me? Have they come in open and claimed that? Have they refuted these kind of things? Why are doctors ready to accept all those things just for money? They're talking about ethics, they're talking about hospital responsibility, they're not taking any of their own responsibility. They are equally responsible if something is going wrong in the hospital. I've never heard any doctor coming forward and reporting it to the media or reporting it to the government organization.
Right. Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, are there doctors right now who are allowed to be whistleblowers? Yes, are there doctors right now who are whistleblowers who take on hospital administration when they do unethical things like not give an ambulance to a patient? So consider the fact that on one day, this patient couldn't be moved from the ICU to the MRI room. They were afraid of moving her that much. And a few days later, refused to give her an ambulance. There's something horribly wrong there if it's a decision that the hospital administration has made. Shouldn't doctors be calling out this hospital administration for behaving in this manner? Why doesn't it happen, Dr. Bagai?
I tell you,
I think most of the hospitals all over India have.
The doctor who was treating my daughter, she was fighting with the medical superintendent of the hospital to give an ambulance, and he refused that. But still she was not able to get an ambulance for me in time because the hospital policy says they will not give you an ambulance.
Okay, so the doctor was fighting for the ambulance, but the hospital policy did not allow it. Please, let's allow Dr. Bagai to respond. Dr. Bagai, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I think this case has been extremely unfortunate. But just speaking in general, I think. Most of the hospitals are accredited. A lot of the hospitals have done phenomenal work. But just as right at the end, I would like to mention just a couple of points. I think we need to address why our healthcare is where we are not promising preventive healthcare. I think we should move towards that.
No, but Dr. Bagai, to be fair, you're not answering my question. Why don't doctors call out unethical behavior? Why don't they call out unethical behavior on behalf of from hospital administration and say what you're doing is wrong? I will report you.
Now, I think there are checks and balances, but which is answering your question directly. There are checks and balances. There are regulations, but I just want to add one specific point. There are hundreds and thousands and millions of lives which are saved by doctors. Absolutely. And I want doctor community as medical fraternity, yes, to be ethical, yes, to work hard, but to be strengthened. I don't want the doctors to be a common flogging horse where something goes wrong, they're put to blame. I think we work very hard, we work very cautiously, we work with great ethics and with a lot of dedication. And I think the doctor community, the medical fraternity needs to be strengthened.
I completely agree with Dr. Bagai because
please tell us about the extortion which is being committed by these doctors as well. We trust the doctors as God.
Bagai, because this is what is driving all doctors.
Right. So let's okay, we have to take this forward, and I'm going to continue to bring this up because there are so many citizens who called us today with problems, and stemming from the problems that Jayan Singh and his family have faced, we're going to continue to bring up this subject. This is what we're going to do in conclusion. And I want to appreciate our panel for coming in. And I understand that the medical community doesn't normally come out against its own. I understand that doctors who function within hospitals, and I'm speaking directly right now to the medical community who's watching and to the doctors who are watching. Doctors who function in hospitals are not always in a position to report what is happening in those hospitals. On your screen right now is my personal email ID. It is on your screen. To the medical community that is watching, if you send us whistleblowing emails about hospital administration, I promise you we will keep your identity safe, but we will release it on the channel. And after verifying it, we will release it on the channel so that the audience knows and so that the government is forced to take action. My personal email ID is on your screen. I invite whistleblowers from within the medical community because I know that you are struggling with this as much as we are. Send us emails with details of problems that you believe are taking place, unethical behavior from on the part of hospital administration, and I promise you we will take it up night after night on this channel until the government is forced to regulate this hospital administration. That is my promise to the medical community. We understand what you're going through, but be whistleblowers. Call out the people who are doing this unethical behavior. Stand by your patients. Stand by your patients. And for the viewers, it is unfair in our country that 15 days of medical treatment for a child should cost 15.5 lakh rupees. It is completely unfair. Completely unfair. We are not that kind of country where people can afford this sort of thing. There has to be some sort of logic to what we are charging. How could we think that it is okay 15 lakh rupees for any sort of treatment? It means that our healthcare is so poor, that government hospitals are so horrible, that the demand for a decent hospital and a decent doctor has gone through the roof. That is why you are presented with a bill of 15 lakh rupees. There's a huge problem right now in our healthcare system, and we're going to take it up on this channel. Send me the problems. There's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's email, it's on your screen. Send me the problems and we will take it up night after night on this channel. That is my promise to you. Thanks for watching.